Welcome back everyone to our Illumina versus Aviti video. I have a second installation today. The first video got a lot of feedback from all of you, and I really am thankful for all the intelligent comments and very informative comments. We were comparing Aviti versus Novaseq and NextSeq and see if Element Biosciences can actually be competitive or will be very competitive with Illumina. And my conclusion was yes. And I got this very smart comment from Alex Dickinson, who I always enjoy having little banter and discussions on LinkedIn with. You know that we had great Grail discussions, and Alex is one of the most knowledgeable people in this space. So when Alex says something, you better listen. And Alex said he's mystified by my comparison of Aviti versus Novaseq and says that makes no sense because it's not just about CapEx and it's not just about dollar per gigabyte consumables in the competitive question, but it's about throughput. And he said, in order to replace one Novaseq, you effectively would need 28 Avitis. I think he said 56, but he forgot that the Aviti has 2 slots. So if he adjusts his math, he's still right if it's true that you would have to replace one Novaseq with 28 Avitis to get to this 8 terabyte per run. And of course, that's not feasible, and you would pay $8 million instead of 1 point something for the Novaseq. So here's the model. And let me just quickly explain how it works. Here you have the platform, right? You have Novaseq X and 6000. You have the different flow cell types. And down here you have Aviti. As you can see with the Novaseq 6000, I just assumed the S4 flow cell, largest flow cell, just for fun to see what happens. And the Novaseq X, we have these different flow cells, 500 gigabytes. That's the first hint, Alex. Why does Novaseq X have a small flow cell like that? Because people want it. And these people, are the target of Aviti. Why? And then you see the 3 terabyte and 8 terabyte flow cells. And we know Aviti has a 300 gigabyte flow cell. Each one has 2 slots, so you can run 2 of these in parallel. And here's the prices. And here is then the translated prices, this divided by this, dollar per gigabyte. And as you can see, the Aviti is the same price as the Novaseq S4, which is shocking. So the Novaseq 6000 is dead on arrival. We will look at throughput in a second. Novaseq X, the small flow cell, is slightly cheaper, but not insignificantly cheaper than the Aviti. And then the large one is actually less than half the cost. So yes, at very large throughputs, the Novaseq X will, achieve significant savings over the Aviti after you spend 1.5 million upfront. So here's my main point to Alex's point. Alex says, doesn't matter if you need that throughput. But there's one thing we need to consider why this is not a apples to apples comparison. These machines don't run continuously. I would doubt that anyone in this country or on Earth has a Novaseq X that they run 24/7 the entire month on 8 terabyte flow cells. I highly doubt it. So let's look at the monthly runs for these machines. So I had 3 columns here, and one is you run it once a month. You run this very large flow cell. Maybe you want to save money on the consumables, and you collect the samples all the way until one day in the month, and then you run them all. We actually do this on the Novaseq 6000 sometimes. Or you run it once a week, 4 times a month. Or you run it twice a week. These are my options because I think nearly no lab falls outside these cycles on a Novaseq. I think no lab runs more than twice a week a Novaseq X with 8 terabytes. So I think that captures the market pretty well. And what I did then is I compared that with how many Avitis install base that lab would need if the Aviti would run all the time, which of course you can, and there's no reason not to do it. The reason not to run the Novaseq is because you don't need no one needs the capacity. So only on an 8 terabyte flow cell that you run once a week or twice a week on a Novaseq X do you actually run into higher CapEx for Aviti, where you need 4 Avitis or 8 Avitis. That's pretty shocking when you think about that. Because how many labs in the country would need to run a Novaseq X on an 8 terabyte flow cell once a week or twice a week? I would say probably, 5 labs out of thousands, or many hundreds, probably thousands. So here that clarifies the comparison of Novaseq throughput versus Aviti throughput. And now let's not forget that at that throughput, at the once or 4 times a month run times of Novaseq, running one Aviti continuously or two is a huge advantage, not a disadvantage, because you reduce the turnaround times for the samples dramatically. Because here, think about it, the longest waiting samples are waiting for 1 month before you get the results. Here you wait for 1 week before you get the result because you run only once a week. On the Aviti, you run continuously. Sample comes in, 48 hours, you get the results. So Alex's argument also backfires, even though he's right on the big labs, but he's not right on the smaller labs that use Novaseq because you get this tremendous turnaround advantage. Now what I want to do 2 more important things here. I want to look at what does it tell us, what kind of lab falls into what category. And in order to do that, I looked at, at Quantin we are doing clinical panels. So we're building them inside hospital systems, and we believe that is the future. We believe in 2025, when we show the first blueprint, the first turnkey solution in a large hospital system, we show the financial effects on the hospital system to get genomic testing inside. And that is very transformative. So I'm focusing here on the most important clinical genomics tests that are reimbursed, because they will be the central driver of genomics industry expansion. Complete genomic profiling for tumor patients, solid tumors. This is the most important test in oncology, the most widely used test that will massively expand over the next 5 years. And you see hereditary cancer, the most underutilized test in the country, where you have 50 million Americans needing this test who don't get it currently because we didn't get it into hospitals. And here you see the gigabytes per test. Whole exome I just put in for fun to have a research example. As you can see, the hereditary cancer test, 100 genes, roughly is a gigabyte to half a gigabyte, depending how you design it. And CGP is normally around 6 gigabytes, with some exceptions. So I'm using these numbers of these key tests, of the most important tests in all of genomics, clinical genomics, reimbursed genomics, to calculate this table, based on this. And what you see is this reflects the lab size here. In order to get into the territory of the labs that are actually where a Novaseq X would actually make sense to have, you see the numbers you have to run. You have to run more than 48,000 hereditary cancer tests per month. No one does that, I can guarantee you that. And to give you a feel what that would mean, the size of hospital you would need to get even to that number, assuming a near perfect capture of the population, which no one can do right now. That's one part of the turnkey solutions, to actually qualify your population much more effectively and faster. So at 48,000 test capacity, this is the size of hospital that would need an Novaseq. The hospital would need to have 76 million patients under management. Now let's look at CGP, complete genomic profiling. How many cancer patients would you need in order to need a Novaseq, in order for you to get into that territory where you have to run 4 or 8 terabyte flow cells per month? Now, let's assume 50% of all cancer patients need CGP under Medicare reimbursement guidelines, which they do, advanced and metastatic cancer, solid cancers. 100% would be qualified of that population to get tested per year. And, that's per month, 4% of all cancer patients would need testing. You would need a cancer center of 96,000 cancer patients per year. So that is the size of cancer center that would get to that need of testing per month. The conclusion is, based on that computation here in this little model, it shows you that there is basically no clinical lab that would need a Novaseq X platform, in the sense that it couldn't be easily replaced with an Aviti platform, with a lot of advantages, actually, faster turnaround times, lower capex. So that's interesting. So who needs Novaseq X? exclusively research labs that run some sort of population-wide enormous whole genome sequencing operation. But my argument against that is that's not a real, market use case. That might be one or two, I don't even know who, like government projects, but that's not a real market. Here we are talking about a market, tens of billions of dollars that are actually fully reimbursed, right? Where the entire real market of genomics is happening. And I want to conclude this video with just a quick look into what that means for Illumina if they don't do something. As you all know, I'm a big fan of Illumina. I think it's tremendous people, a tremendous company that has done so much for the space. I don't want to bash Illumina. I'm pointing out the facts and that Illumina has to do something. Otherwise, they will be at enormous risk. So let's assume 50% of Illumina revenue from NextSeq Novaseq comes from NextSeq install base. And let's assume 10% of that is somehow FDA logged in, so protected. Novaseq, less than 4 times 8 terabytes, so the labs that fall under that threshold, I assume these are wild assumptions, and Alex and everyone at Illumina, if you want to, correct that, give me the numbers, I can adjust that. I don't have information what the exact revenue split is. I'm just assuming 50% NextSeq, 50% Novaseq. And with a Novaseq, half-half split, under 4 times per month and half over 4 times per month of revenue stemming from that. And if that's the case, and only this year, only this area is actually protected, and these two are not protected, right? Then what you see is that 70% of the entire Illumina revenue that stems from NextSeq and Novaseq is up for grabs by Aviti, because Aviti can make a stronger economic argument and a stronger turnaround time argument because you can run it more frequently, which is a very important argument. I think that's a very alarming number for Illumina. 70% of all NextSeq and Novaseq revenue on consumables is at risk. Now, how could Illumina change that? I don't know. They can lower the prices on the flow cells. They can try to get NextSeq competitive with Aviti on the price per gigabyte level. That would do I think something very important. They can work on their lease offerings. I didn't check the latest, but they need to be competitive on lease and financing to bring down CapEx on all of these machines. And they need to really pay attention. I think that's what they need to do. So that's it for now for my model. I hope that was helpful. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Let me know all your comments that you have, and let's have a discussion around that. Maybe I overlooked something. And I think Illumina is in trouble. I think that because I'm actually using both systems, and we are evaluating them for rolling them out into a lot of hospitals. And this shift inside hospitals that will unlock a tremendous amount of clinical testing in hereditary cancer and CGP first will be very beneficial for patients, and it will be very, very decisive for the future of the genomics industry on which platform this decentralized genomics will take place. Now, I will do another video soon where I explain the turnkey solution, what is actually the catalyst here, why this suddenly starts to work in hospitals, and what needed to happen to get the technology to a critical level, what that technology actually is, since it's not sequencing platforms or chemistry or bioinformatics, it's a different thing. And I will also outline what the exact impact of this massive shift in genomics will be on Agilent, on Illumina, on Aviti, potentially on Thermo Fisher, on LabCorp, on Quest. So we will have a nice impact study on the industry in the next video. So see you then. And as I said, let me know in the comments what you think, and let's have a little discussion.